Well, hello, everybody. I am so excited to bring Adrienne Enns to you today for a Your Stories Matters conversation. Adrienne is the founder of May You Know Joy. Her mission in this world is to inspire our most intentional daily living through products, conversations, and experiences. She is the host of the Intention Sessions podcast and an author of the book Intentional Days, which you can find on Amazon and Audible, which is my favorite way to digest books. And so today she's going to be sharing her journey to recovery from addictions. She is now 9 years plus sober. Her struggle has inspired her to do what she does today, from her daily practices to everything that she does within her business to encourage and inspire others. She has chosen joy and has realized that through simple, consistent choices, she can live life on purpose and for a purpose, because obviously what you're doing in this big, beautiful world is really, truly sharing joy. And I got to take a quick peek at some of your product line, and I'm excited for you to share some of that later on in our conversation. But these tools that you use to help encourage and inspire that intentional, I choose joy, is not an easy thing for everybody, especially when they're in the midst of their struggle. So I would love, Adrienne, for you to share just kind of like where the addiction came in your life. Yep. And what inspired you to actually reach out for the support and walk that recovery journey, and how you've been able to maintain it for the last 9 years, because I know that can be a struggle all on its own. So
sure, we'll dive in. Stacey, first of all, thank you for having me, and to everyone watching or listening, I'm happy to be here. And yeah, I'll just dive in and share where I was. I don't know that I was inspired to get help, but I had to. So I would say I came at it from a different headspace, but got the help nonetheless. So as Stacey said, I've been sober for over 9 years now, which is something I'm incredibly grateful for. And I'm not tempted to drink now, but I do work on myself and my life and my lack of calm every single day. So my intentional practice and what I share, which we're going to talk about later, is foundational to how I live my life. Just to briefly paint the picture, over 9 years ago, I was a mom of small kids. So that's full of shame. I was working in the corporate world, married, just really trying to, in hindsight, I can see that I was overwhelmed with stress, obligations. I'd always known drinking. It's genetically in my family line, and it's just something I was always surrounded with. So not alcoholism necessarily, but my family and my community, it was for as long as I could remember, it was just normal. I didn't know anybody who didn't drink. So when did it start? I don't know. It was just there.
It was in the womb.
It was there. And, and then probably, in my 20s, I loved it, and it was social. I worked in advertising. It was just all over my life, and then I don't really know at what point it became a problem, but I think it had been a problem for a long time, and I just didn't know it because people around me had similar habits, so it was normal in a way, which is messed up. Mm-hmm. But then at some point, I just had horrible anxiety, horrible panic attacks. So, I'm taking something to calm that down from my doctor. I'm drinking way too much, like all the time. And if I'm not doing it, I'm shaking. Like, so your body is telling you, like, we're trying to get your attention. And I just wanted it to stop, you know, like I didn't want to feel stressed. I wanted to feel calm. I didn't want my body to shake. Like it was my only coping mechanism, which in hindsight is so messed up and sad, but that's where it was. And then towards the end, and I would say the end being right before I went into treatment, I just wasn't like, I couldn't get out of bed, you know, and just was really letting everything lapse. And I physically, emotionally, mentally was completely unwell. So a family friend, you know, who had been through this, unbeknownst to me, got me help. She's like, I can see what's going on. And it's crazy, but when you're in it, sometimes you can't see it. And she pointed it out to me. So obviously it wasn't something I wanted to recognize, you know,
or hear.
So that wasn't, right? You know, a quick decision, you know, and my family was like, you need to get help. And I was like, I'll try and I couldn't stop on my own. So,
you know, after you had a problem, or was it just something like, I got this, like, I'm just social?
It wasn't, I wanted to see if I could do it on my own. I don't think I wanted to admit that it was that serious, because the other part is like when you admit that you have a problem, which to me is like one of the hardest parts of this, it's like, then you're under a microscope, right? Like you have to give up this thing that you are physically addicted to. Like, and it is like a mental, like in AA, they describe it as like cunning, baffling, and powerful. Like, so your mind is manipulated by this, your body's manipulated by this. So it doesn't want you to stop, you know? And like, so if you admit you have a problem, well, number one, you're full of shame. You're just like, how did it come to this? Like, I was just like, I don't know how I got here. I don't want to be here, wanted to avoid it, which meant more numbing out. And like, then if I said I had a problem, put my hand up, people would have their eye on me. You know, I'd managed to hide a lot of this up until now. And I was, you know, scared of anxiety, panic attacks, etc. But it got so bad that I did check myself into treatment. And that was terrifying because you're just like, yeah, you just like, I remember going there that morning being like, I wonder what all the normal people are doing today. Like, how can they hack life? Do you know what I mean? Like, how's everybody doing this? And I can't do this, you know, like you just, it's very surreal. And you don't want, nobody wants to go there, you know? So, but when I got there, and I was there for a 21-day program, like finally I could be honest. You know what I mean? Like these people really got me. They could explain this to me. And I could also be really honest of like, this is what I've been doing. This is how I've been feeling. And they're like, to be seen and understood with people who actually can fix you, but like know what's going on. Like a lot of times with you, people in your life that actually can't help you, which is unfortunate for you and for them. But I just always describe that as one of the best, worst experiences. So worst, because as I've just described, like you've hit your bottom and you're just like, I never wanted to be here. I didn't see the other side of this. Like I couldn't imagine it.
Right.
But it's the best experience because it changed everything. Like the life I had today is like, would have been a fraction of it, would have been completely impossible. So with that, and now I'm like, this is like 9 years of hindsight, but
no, it takes time, right? It takes time.
It does.
I grew up with addicts. I was born an addict.
Okay.
my mom took her life when I was 19, and my brother got really deep into his addictions. And it was heart-wrenching to watch him, because he used to always be like the pillars, like Stace, like when I turned 18, he's like, and I started going to the clubs and hanging out with my friends, doing the social thing. And I remember him saying to me, is like, be careful, like go out, have fun, have a few drinks, but do know that alcoholism runs deep within our family line. So be cautious and always be in control. And those words stuck with me. And then unfortunately, the trauma, because sometimes the addictions and alcoholism, it's trauma related. Sometimes it's just the social component of wanting to fit in, and or just deal with the stress of like small children and having a corporate, job where it's, and a husband that's like you're pulled in a million directions. So how do you cope, right?
Yeah.
There's so many reasons that we get pulled into those dependencies. And so it wasn't trauma, but it was more of the corporate.
There was trauma there too.
Was there trauma?
Yeah. So but somebody's asked me before, like trauma is interesting too, right? Because it's not one specific event that was traumatic, but just, I could learn through getting professional help, because that was sort of the next step, right? Like, it's like you're numbing out and avoiding things for a reason, So for me, it was like visiting a therapist, but it was also like things like going to an energy healer and starting yoga. Like, so it was a real combination of things, but I thought, like, I really want to clear all of this out. So trauma could be, in my reading, the way I understand it, is like any event that we interpret as traumatic, so you and I could be at the same event and you might be like, that was fine, or that was no big deal. And I might have taken it as traumatic, so
right.
Yeah, it was years of all kinds of things I just didn't even know were underneath. So I do really believe we need to like excavate all of that, like clear it out, so we don't want to numb out anymore.
Right. And I came into the coaching space because I see too many women suffering in silence. And a lot of that is because we have that shame and that guilt and that overwhelm, and we're scared what people are going to think or look at us, how they're going to look at us if we, turn ourselves inside out and show that transparency of like, and the vulnerability of our struggle, right?
Yeah.
Let's just lay it all out there. We all got junk. We all broken people.
And we'll continue to. Like, it doesn't just disappear.
It doesn't. It's layers. And I know even from my own journey, like, yeah, I've been able to find some success, just like you have, being 9 years sober. I've been able to find some success in my mental health and my spiritual health. But there's still areas of my life that I'm working on, like even just the trauma of my childhood and how I brought all that luggage into my marriage. We've just celebrated 18 years this past week.
Congratulations.
So thank you. But it has been a challenge to be able to say, hey, we are still going strong, because there's been seasons of our marriage that trauma and all the different dependencies and different things that I've had in my life that have,
Yeah.
You have to break it down, and we can't do it all in one shot, because it would be too overwhelming.
Yeah.
So AA was like a huge foundational piece for my brother's recovery. He is now a recovering addict, and
amazing.
I'm so proud of him, because it's just been within the last couple of years. It's still a new journey for him, and he's still repairing relationships and having to go through all of that tough work, because he was in that place for over a decade of that dependency. And it was deep. Like, he was very vile and very, would hurt a lot of people when he was in that space.
Yeah.
So AA has been like, I haven't been to any of those programs, or even, how the love, there's a side for the family to go and get some understanding and some tools to help support the the person struggling, but I know that it's been revolutionary for my brother. So tell me a little bit about that journey. If somebody truly is like fearful and knows that they want to overcome this addiction, and they know that they need to go to AA, but they're scared and they got that shame, and they're like,
Yeah.
no, I'm afraid, and I just don't want people to look at me differently. And what would you say with that program, with that 21 days that you spend? How did
Well,
that?
in full transparency, it's not a program that I really used for my recovery.
Okay.
However, it, like, everybody can make choices, right? Like, there are so many amazing resources. And what I do think, and I didn't choose it, but I'm not saying other people shouldn't. I think it's, as you've described for your brother, like, it's just different things for different people.
Mm.
But what I really like is that, yeah, like, it's broken out into 12 steps. People really understand you. I live in Toronto. So what was fascinating to me, because I did go there for the very early part of my recovery, and it helped me a lot until I needed something different. And again, this is so personal for everybody. And I just feel like there
Mm.
are different resources now than there were 9 years ago, because now there are all these great online communities, some just for women, some just for men, and for all kinds of addictions. So whether it's specific drugs, it's alcohol, sex, gambling, whatever it is, you can really get help. What I think is amazing about AA, where I was going before I got off of my little tangent, is like, here, like, there are always meetings happening. So you can just show up to a group of people for free that get you,
Mm.
and you can sit in the back, you can talk. Like, it's just, again, this sense of being understood and listened to. And then when you hear people who've been on maybe a different set of details, but basically a similar journey, it just makes you feel not alone. So I think it's an incredible resource. And then through COVID, like, a lot of that's gone online, right? So there's no excuse for
Right.
not
You
getting
don't
to a
even have
meeting.
to go on camera. You can just be a fly on the wall.
Yeah, it's very, very accessible. And the thing is, when you're in it, you feel like you're so alone, and you're not. And we see the numbers in the media, like, across North America, right? That these numbers for alcoholism, for opioid use, and then for alcoholism, especially in women, is just like through the roof.
Mm.
So yeah, like, you could go to a group like that. I think it's an amazing place to start, or like talk to your doctor or a trusted friend or a therapist. I encourage you to ask for help.
Mm.
And it's great to get, I want to be careful how I word this, because sometimes our family and friends can be well meaning, but they're very emotionally involved and affected by what's going
Yeah,
on. So, not that they
absolutely.
can't support you, because they absolutely can, but sometimes getting this, I'm going to air quote professional, because it can look so many different ways, is really powerful. And then you can also really just show up and say everything you're going through without necessarily hurting somebody else's feelings.
Right, because it could just be an argument with your spouse, or like the tension that's there because whatever has transpired over the last number of years that you haven't dealt with, that you've covered up with alcohol. I'm just thinking of a specific family friend that has gone through some struggles. So I'm just kind of
Like, I would say too,
there's
like,
so many reasons.
like, in using, let's say, a therapist example, like, and I know that there's also free counseling. Like, there's so many things available to you,
Coaches,
no
right?
matter
There's the
where you're
recovery
at.
coaches. Yeah.
Yeah, is just like, it's kind of like this safe container for, like, when you use the example of, let's say, a marital relationship, where you as the specific partner, like, you can go get clear on all of your bullshit. Do you know what I mean? And your triggers and your trauma, but you have to do your own work, and then decide how you want to show up in that relationship, decide how you want to express yourself. We, as we all know, can't control this other person, but we can control how we show up. And ideally, we show up differently and the dynamic changes. And if it doesn't, well, then that's something for you to look at in your relationship. But yeah, it's this safe space to just like really, people can see you in a different way and really help you understand why you behave in certain ways, and bring all this stuff like up and out, so you talk about it and deal with it and hopefully can move forward from it.
That's so powerful. So are you still married from?
No.
Okay. I'm like, so how's it going with your marriage? So I'm sorry if that's a
no, in fact, like, yeah, and you know what, I could feel like there was also like a feeling of this, like when I went into recovery, this like voice that was like, you need to do this like by yourself, for yourself, like there are these moments where they're just like something else is guiding you. And I also think in that moment, I knew that we would not be together. And so while that was difficult and painful, we do have a strong parental relationship. And I think we, not together, parent our kids pretty well. And he was able to take his own life path, and I was able to take my own life path. And again, that was about 6 years ago. So there's some distance between that. So I was grateful when I was going through that I was sober and that I had healthy coping mechanisms. And while it was painful, I knew that it was for the best. So,
and how is it,
and now, there's
now?
a new partner in my life. And with the work that I've done, I have a very different kind of relationship that is like healthy and joyful in a way that I didn't think possible. So, we learn and grow and stay open, and there's no one outcome. Yes.
And all the wonderful things that you're doing in your business of choosing joy every day. So tell me, what does that actually look like when you wake up and you're like, I'm going to choose joy or put on joy, or however you want to phrase it? So how does that work?
And I'm going to just backtrack for one sec, just to give some context to your question. So the other part was, when I was in my recovery, I was just like, you realize how much energy you've put into this addiction, so into your own self-destruction. And I was like, what would it look like? Like if I put my energy into, like finding joy, like doing things that are actually nourishing, and like I'm on my own side instead of like this kind of relationship with myself. And then the other part was, I was like, and I really did have to turn my whole life around, and I was like, if I'm going to all of this trouble, I do want to be happy. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be stuck in my stories. I don't want to be stuck in old stuff. I really want to be happy. So, and with that, overall, like this, I'm going to tell you about my day in a moment, but like choosing joy to me is very important. It's foundational to what I do every day, but it doesn't mean I'm happy all the time. So when we choose joy, sometimes it might be like, I need to have this tough conversation today in order to tether myself to joy, or I need to pay my bills, or I need to do this, or I need to do that. So I just want to clarify that, because it can be a misconception. But in my effort to choose joy, I practice yoga, practice meditation. These things are essential to my mental health, my physical health. They just connect me. So those are non-negotiables for me every day. Whether it's like 5 minutes, 30 minutes, it looks very different. I'm very forgiving with myself, but it's part of it.
Yeah.
And this is cultivated over time, but I was like, so it's nourishing yourself, right? Like, so checking in, like, what is going to happen today? Like, what is my intention for today? And for me, that means just checking in and being like, how do I want to show up today? You know, if maybe my kids have something and I'm like, I just really want to be here to support them. Or, you know, like you just think of like, how do I want to show up? Am I perfect at it? Absolutely not. But by choosing it, at least I'm aligning with, like, kind of setting the GPS, like might get off on a few detours, but I'm trying to go in that direction.
Well, the GPS will tell us to take a U-turn, and every once in a while we'll have
exactly
our emotions too.
Recalculating.
So true.
And then I do it personally. This is what I'm always telling people, is that, you know, like our life is for today, you know? So I do look for every opportunity to infuse joy into my moments, you know? So if I'm working at my computer, maybe that's like a great latte and my favorite music, or texting my sister, or wearing a color I love. Like, this joy can be infused into everything that we do. So it doesn't have to be like, I'm going to have joy just once a year when I go on vacation. You know, it's just like really thinking about, and I've talked to lots of people who don't even know what makes them happy, you know, like, because life's gotten so hamster wheel like. So if that's the case, you know, it's like just being curious, like, because what makes you happy might not make me happy, and just noticing, like, that just really lifts my spirits. And it's the small, simple stuff that we do all the time that adds up.
That's right. I'm so glad that you said that, because sometimes when you're stuck in that cloud of pain and torment, and you're just stuck in the hamster wheel of people's negative things that they've said over you over your lifetime, or the things that you have said over yourself over your lifetime, or your spouse, or you're just not happy. And sometimes we get stuck in this idea that, especially in today's world with all the social mayhem that's out there, where we fall into this comparison game, and just like, well, I'm not ever going to be like that, or I'll never, my husband is so not like that. Like, you know, like, we can compare, and then instantly, and I have this quote on my vision board, actually. It says, never let the things that you want make you forget the things that you have. Because so often we can look at the world and be like, oh, you know, I wish I had her life, or whatever the case may be. And then we forget of all the amazing things that we've been blessed with, but we're not focused on the gratitude component of, you know, the Thanksgiving of what we do have. We have a roof over our head. We have transportation. We have healthy children. We have some form of income, like whatever that looks like. You might not be where you want it to be, but at least, you know, your needs are being met. You have food on the table, like you can turn your lights on and off, right? Those are things that we take for granted because we just come accustomed that they're just supposed to be there. But there's people in this world that live on the streets and they can't turn on a light or have a hot shower. And those are things that we take for granted, and we should. So I know that you have created some really cool things to really dive into the gratitude mindset and that intentionality. And because I think that tools are important in order to keep that remembrance going for us, right? Because we open up our phones and we're instantly bombarded with everything from everybody else. And I get so frustrated with like
Same.
the influencers that portray this perfect, amazing body that they just photoshopped and the car that they rented to do this photo shoot. Like it's not real, not
I
all
know.
of it. And how do you filter what's real, what's not? And then you're like, well, I guess I'm just a nobody then, right? But that's not true. You're somebody and you were born for a purpose and on purpose. And I can say that with great enthusiasm, even though I'm a product of prostitution and born with an addiction. Like I was born on purpose for a purpose, and I'm here today to live that out. And by sharing my story and sharing the struggle and the overcoming and being able to choose joy, to be able to look at life in a glass half full concept, right? Like,
yeah. And I love, like to your point too, like the word like choosing joy is sometimes like it's even just asking ourselves, like in those tough moments, like, can I choose it? And at first the answer might be no. Do you know what I mean? Like whether it's, I don't feel like I'm good enough, I'm not worth it, I don't know how. And even just asking ourselves these questions. And that's what I mean, like even just coming down to this, like you said, like being present in our own lives and like, like looking around and being like, what am I actually grateful for? You know, like it's just this presence and this awareness. And then like, like that person on Instagram is not going to make you happy. They might not even be happy, you know?
That's so
So
true.
it's just this like, what really like lights you up. And then to your point too, of sometimes we do want things and it's not bad to want things. But I love to use the word like create. Like, so if I want that, like what small thing could I do today to like create that for myself? Like, so, or to create one step closer. So let's say it's some big fancy trip. Like maybe I put like a screensaver on my phone of this destination. Do you know what I mean? So I'm already enjoying it. Or maybe I set up like taking a little bit of money out of my account to save for that trip, you know, or like buy a book about it or read it. Like, do you know what I mean? Like some small steps that get you just a little bit closer instead of being like creating this big separation, because sometimes we get so overwhelmed by the big thing that we don't do anything. And
we get paralyzed.
You know, so like just being more like connect to it, you know, like allow the possibility of it. Like, is it going to happen? I don't know. You don't know. We all know the world's very uncertain. So
very uncertain.
It's anybody's guess what's going to happen tomorrow. But you could.
It's so true.
Am I right?
It's so true. I don't even think they know what's going to happen tomorrow. They just pick something out of a hat. Be like, all right, let's do this.
I know. But like just that, like choosing yourself, and sometimes just choosing to be on your own side. And I don't know about you, but like when I was coming out of this, like I didn't even like myself, you know, like, so to learn to even like yourself or start to love yourself or just be kind to yourself, like it gets tossed around too, like crazy, which I think is a good thing that people are talking about it. But like sometimes you can't underestimate like how micro the steps are that you start with, and it's just doing them consistently.
So like you said, there was a part or a season in your addiction where you didn't even want to get out of bed.
Yeah.
So that small step of just getting out of bed, jumping in the shower and putting on clean clothes is a victory. Even though some of us take it for so much it's like mindless. What do you mean it's hard for you to get dressed? Like it's not, right? Like we can't judge where people are at. I know I watched my mom struggle with depression her whole life, and for her to get out of bed was the biggest struggle.
Wow.
And if she could brush her hair and put on some lipstick and make herself feel good for the day, it was a good day for everybody in the household. Let's be real.
Like
but
that really puts it in perspective, right?
yeah, big time. And it's hard watching people hurt and struggle in that way. So if you're listening and you're finding yourself having a hard time even just getting out of bed and jumping in the shower, if you can push yourself just to do that one step, we celebrate you.
Absolutely. Like one like kind, nourishing thing, no matter how small it is, and like to be on your own side, like not beat yourself up, but yeah, like also talk to yourself like you would talk to your best friend, like supportive.
Mm-hmm. I have loved this conversation, Adrienne. Really, I do want to dive in and learn more about what you're doing to serve this big, beautiful world of ours, and talk about some of these really cool tools that you have in your back pocket that you've been able to share with the world to encourage and inspire their journey in life, no matter what that journey is.
Yeah. So out of this, I have a few examples here. Like intention card decks, and it just really started out of me wanting to create them. And it was like a very uphill battle. And it was because I had a deck, and kind of similar to what we were just talking about, like I knew nothing about this. I found it, and in the early days, I would pick one in the morning, and it just kind of opened. My aperture was like this. Do you know what I mean? So it just kind of made me look at the world a little bit differently. It shifted my mindset. It made me a little more open and curious. And so, as Stacy said, these cards are just a tool, so you could write them on a Post-it note. You could have a screensaver on your phone. Like, you don't have to invest in products or big fancy programs.
I have an app on my phone. It's an affirmation app, and it has these. It's called I Am, and with the iPhones, you can create these big boxes. So
I love that
affirmation, and it rotates probably 6 or 7 times throughout the day, and it'll give me like a new affirmation just to encourage and inspire my spirit, or just the energy of my day, whatever it is. So
and that's exactly the idea. So we have there are about 5 decks now. One of the most recent ones is like a little gratitude. So again, it's just, I'm gonna pull a card for us. So we can get in ruts, right? So it's just a simple reminder. And then if you have it somewhere handy, maybe you have a gratitude practice then in the morning or the evening. Maybe you put the card on your desk or on your fridge or in your bathroom. And it just helps, like Stacy just described, to nudge. So this one just says, I'm
grateful for today. That's beautiful.
So again, that pause, and what about this random Thursday? Are we grateful for? We're never going to have this Thursday ever again, So just really pausing, being aware, noticing. And then the other one I just have to share, given our conversation today, but I created, and I'd wanted to do this one for a long time.
Joy and recovery.
That's beautiful. So I love the dark box with the stars, because it's in this darkness, there can be light, hope, possibility. Beautiful. And so these are for people on a recovery journey. I wrote them from 9 years of journaling, but I've also had people tell me if they're recovering from, if they're navigating grief, recovering from a weight loss journey, all kinds of things, things that aren't my personal experience. They resonate. And I think sometimes in recovery too, what I like about cards and why I choose to create these is sometimes there isn't a meeting or we can't go on a retreat or do something bigger. Like you can pull a card or like have an affirmation on your phone anytime. Like you might be feeling down in the middle of the night, like, you know, so it's like, what do you do then, you know? So this one actually here, this is just what we were talking about before. I know these don't come up great on the screen, but
I can create my future. I love that.
Yeah. So just these reminders of just like small things, but like if they just shift you and shift you and shift you every day, it's like, you know, those big boats in the ocean, like they can't turn around quickly, but if you shift and shift and shift, all of a sudden, and you might not always realize in that moment, you know, you might not have a big aha every time, but if you're mindfully doing this, your mindset will shift. I know that. And then all of a sudden one day you're like, wow, like there's actually been a big difference.
So true. Like I know, like this is completely not non-related to the recovery journey, but I've had some insecurities about body image for a long time in my life. And even when I was like a size 8 and I'm 5'9". So even when I was a size 8, I probably looked unhealthily skinny, but I still did not think that I was pretty or that I was valuable or worthy. And then being married, my husband has a very high sex drive, which made me feel, you know, in different seasons of our life, I'm like, oh, I guess that's what I'm made for. So then I started protecting myself by gaining weight, thinking that if I gain weight, and this was totally unintentional, this was just something that unconsciously I did, as like, I didn't feel good about myself, and why should he just want me like that, even though that's his love language. So but it was a real big struggle for me. And I thought, well, if I gain 60 pounds, maybe he won't want me as much, but that's a complete lie because he wants me just the same. And so I'm like, well, I'm only hurting myself here, Stacy. So you need to get off this crazy train and get your butt moving. It's crazy how like even those thoughts, we don't even really sometimes realize what we're doing to sabotage ourselves. But that whole journaling process, seeking therapy or some kind of professional assistance or a coach or just somebody to talk to.
Coaches are amazing.
Somebody you can talk to that's going to look at hear your stories and ask questions to help you explore and go deeper into why the why is happening. Right? Yeah.
And I imagine for you, like once you, like to me, when you say that, like that's very insightful, you know, like it's not just a decision you make one day, like to gain 1 pound, 2 pounds, you know what I mean? And then to like understand where it's coming from, and then, you know, choose whatever you want, like whatever you want your weight to be, but more importantly, how you want to operate in this relationship, you know, like I just think like that willingness to learn and see things is huge.
Yeah. And to be, and to have grace on yourself, because sometimes the things that we'll discover about our nature, we're not going to be happy about, right? So it's just like, okay, well, that's who I am today, but that's not who I can have to be tomorrow. We have that choice. Just like you said, like when you wake up, we set that intention, and having tools and resources and a support group in place to help us stick to what that intention is, so that we can make the steps that we want to live that best life, to live our life full of joy and happiness and gratitude, which are like, I would have to say that they're the most valuable things that we could ever attain in our life. It's not a big fancy house or some card that's going to cost you your child's first inheritance deposit, whatever. Like, it's not about that stuff. It's really, truly the value of relationships and value with the relationship, even with your own personal self. Like, if any of you are walking in a season of singleness, there is a lot of blessing that can happen in that space, even though you might be struggling with feeling lonely and unworthy of being in a relationship. There's a really great series I watched from Pastor Mike Todd from Transformation Church. You can find it on YouTube for free. It's called Relationship Goals. And he walks through, the blessing of being single and how
I loved it.
You watched it?
No, I loved being single.
Oh yeah. But when we're growing up, the idea that the society has placed it on us is that us as women, especially, your goal is to get married, get pregnant, and raise a family and serve your man however he needs you. You got to submit, right? Like, those are this ideas sometimes that the society has placed on us, or our parents have, or whatever the case may be. But knowing who you are and being okay with being single and finding yourself in that space, it just creates a stronger you. And when you're stronger, and then when God does bring you a partner that you can walk and entertain into that courtship or partnership or marriage, then you're so much stronger to bring into that relationship. It's not like, hey, can you fix me? It's like, hey, I'm whole. How are you going to, how can we, take our union together and make a bigger impact in this world and for our families, right?
Yeah. And when you bring this up, like, it's a great opportunity to just like underscore a couple of things. Like, when I was newly single, I did do some experiments. I was like, in terms of joy, I was like, we used to always do, let's say, this activity, and I was like, I wonder if I actually like that, like, on my own, what I mean? Because you get so used to doing things. And I was like, or I wanted to try new things, and it was just like, it was a great opportunity to really learn about myself. And I was like, oh, I actually really do like doing that. We'll keep that. Or this, I'm like, yeah, I don't really need to do that anymore. So we're good. But yeah, just like, really, like, as people, we're really responsible for our own happiness, like, really taking care of ourselves. And like, when I say nourishing, I mean like mind, body, soul. So that could be like you doing art or going to church, or like whatever feeds you. And then to what you said earlier about like the parts of us we don't like those are all there. And it is what makes us whole and like balances us out. And everything has like good and bad sides. So yeah, when ultimately, I just know for me, when I was very reluctant, like kind of had a protective shield on, if you will. But, like, then, yeah, you're not expecting someone else to make you happy. You can come to it in a very different kind of way. And when you're also comfortable with yourself, which I got married really young, I didn't really know myself like I do now.
It's so powerful. So this has just been, I could honestly talk with you all day.
Yes. Well, I'm mindful of your time. So whenever you're like, it's over, that's good.
Yeah. So I guess right now, I would love for you to be able to share with the community, or even we can find ways to bring a link to your cards, because I think that it's such a powerful tool. I've bought cards in the past that are inspiring. And I even have bought these really cool things. They're called lunchbox something. I'd have to relook at the thing. But when my kids were in school, and I'd even drop them in my husband's lunchbox from time to time. But there's this little card case that you can get, and it's just like a business card size, but it's got this really cute quote, or like just speaking like gratitude, or encouraging or inspiring our young people, because I think we sometimes forget that they too need to have those words sewn into them. And so these little tools I used to drop in the kids' lunchbox, and my daughter would take a picture and throw it on her social media and be just like, look at my love, like.
I love that so much.
Yeah, maybe you can add that to your collection of.
Maybe I can.
Some little ideas.
Love it.
It's so cool that there's these tools out there that we can encourage ourselves, but how can we also encourage those around us? And having these tools and being able to share them with our friends and family is just, it's powerful, because I think if we can all just, what was that song I listened to? Be kind. Like if we can just be kind to one another, then I think that there'd be a lot less division, a lot less judgment. Like,
I couldn't agree with you more.
Such a broken world.
Yeah, if everybody shifted it just a little bit, like not even a lot, just a little bit, it would make a big difference.
Huge. So tell me, darling, how do people get their hands on your beautiful cards?
They can find them on my website. So it's mayyouKnowJoy.com. And I'm also on Instagram at mayyouKnowJoy. So like it's all in the link in bio. And I'm happy to create like a promo code for your group. I don't have it like in this moment, but I can share it with you, and you're welcome. We can give them a discount. So
that'd be wonderful.
Yeah.
And you also have a book on Amazon and Audible. And so just tell us quickly what that book is about.
I have it right here. So I'll just, so you can recognize the cover, but it's called Intentional Days, and it's written in 3 parts. So basically I always get the question, like, people hear intention all the time, but they're like, what does it actually mean? So the first section is about what it means to be intentional and how your life can really transform and benefit from it. The second part is like how to actually do it. So morning practices, evening practices, seasonal practices, like how can I integrate it into my everyday life? Because I also really like simple, practical stuff. And then the last section is just a bunch of passages. So it's kind of like a daily reader. So you could, if you knew I need to read something about love today, you could turn to the love page, or you could just open it at random, trusting you're going to get the right passage. But yeah, it's on Amazon. And then I read it for the Audible version. So I'll read it to you, basically.
I love that. Well, thank you for doing that, because I know that can't be an easy feat, because I've heard some other authors say that you think, oh, it's going to be easy. It's my book. I can read it. But they make it note, stop, rewind, redo, unless.
I didn't mind that part so much. It's actually like, because also it's your own words. You do think it's going to be easy. Actually, it was quite emotionally cathartic. Like you're just, when you actually give voice to something, yeah, it's a very emotional experience and kind of tiring in a different way. So I really enjoyed that expression of it, I should say.
I love it. Well, I'm definitely an Audible girl, so I will definitely be downloading that and getting my ears on it.
Awesome. I hope you enjoy it.
I'm sure I will. I very much enjoyed this conversation and just getting to know you better. So I'm sure your book is just as amazing.
Thank you. I've enjoyed our time too. This has really been fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, thanks, Adrienne. I really, truly appreciate your time and sharing it with us today, and just sharing your journey and inspiration and encouragement to the Beautiful You community. So I hope you'll come back and visit.
I would love to.
Awesome. Take care, darling.
Bye. Thank you.